What if the person you judge today holds the key to your tomorrow? The city never sleeps, but it does take a breath. In that quiet hour before dawn, when the corporate towers stand like silent sentinels against the grey sky, there's a moment of perfect stillness. The streets below hum with the distant promise of another day, another battle, another chance to prove worth in a world that measures value by the weight of your wallet and the thread count of your suit. Inside the gleaming Meridian Tower, 47 floors of glass and steel reaching toward the heavens, the night shift is coming to an end. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across empty corridors, their buzz the only sound accompanying the soft shuffle of worn sneakers against marble floors. These are the hours when the building belongs to the invisible people, the ones who clean up after the powerful, who polish the surfaces where important decisions are made, who empty the trash bins filled with crumpled dreams and discarded ambitions. Michael Hartwell moves through these corridors like a ghost. At 58, his shoulders carry the weight of years spent bent over mop buckets and vacuum cleaners. His uniform, once navy blue, has faded to a weary grey that matches the early morning sky. The fabric is soft from countless washes, comfortable in the way that only well-worn clothes can be. His hands, rough and calloused from decades of honest work, grip the handles of his cleaning cart with the practiced ease of someone who has found rhythm in routine. But it's his eyes that tell a different story. Behind wire-rimmed glasses, held together with a small piece of tape, Michael's eyes hold depths that seem at odds with his humble circumstances. There's intelligence there, sharp and observant, cataloguing every detail of the world around him. When he looks at the oil paintings in the executive lobby, worth more than most people's homes, he doesn't see them with the detached admiration of an outsider. His gaze lingers with the familiarity of old acquaintance, as if these walls hold memories that only he can see. The ritual begins at exactly 6:47 a.m., just as the first pale light starts to filter through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Michael parks his cart in the supply closet, hangs his gloves on their designated hook, and makes his way to the building's main lobby. In his thermos, coffee still steams, not the bitter brew from the employee break room, but something richer, more complex. He pours it into a simple ceramic mug, one of the few personal items he allows himself during these long nights. The corner chair has been waiting for him. Positioned just so, it offers a perfect view of the lobby's grand entrance while remaining tucked away from the main flow of traffic. The leather is worn smooth by countless mornings, molded to the shape of his solitary ritual. From this vantage point, Michael can watch the city wake up through the massive windows, can observe the early arrivals who stride through the lobby with purpose and ambition burning in their eyes. This is his moment. Not stolen, not taken, but earned through the long hours of labor that keep this corporate cathedral running. For 15 minutes, he sits and sips his coffee, watching the world transform from the grey uncertainty of dawn into the sharp clarity of another business day. The silence is profound, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the soft whisper of the building's ventilation system. In these quiet moments, Michael's mind drifts to memories that feel like scenes from someone else's life. He remembers when these same marble floors were just blueprints on his drafting table, when every architectural detail was born from his vision and brought to life by his hands. He recalls the weight of the hard hat he once wore, not as a janitor, but as the man who shaped this very building from concrete and steel and impossible dreams. The irony isn't lost on him. The executives who will soon flood through these doors have no idea that the man who cleans their offices once stood in boardrooms making decisions that affected thousands of lives. They see only the uniform, the cleaning cart, the quiet figure who might as well be part of the building's infrastructure. Invisible, insignificant, easily overlooked. But Michael has made peace with invisibility. There's a strange freedom in being unseen, in moving through the world without the weight of expectation or the burden of recognition. He has learned to find satisfaction in small things. A floor polished to perfection, a coffee cup positioned just right on a clean desk, the simple dignity of work well done. The coffee tastes different here, in this chair, in this moment. It's not just caffeine and warmth. It's a reminder that he still exists, that beneath the uniform and behind the silence, there's still a man with thoughts and dreams and memories that refuse to be erased by circumstance. As the city stretches and yawns outside the windows, Michael knows that soon this sanctuary will be invaded. The executives will arrive with their designer suits and their urgent phone calls, their problems that feel world-ending and their solutions that move markets. They'll fill the lobby with their importance, their noise, their absolute certainty that they are the ones who matter. But for now, in this perfect stillness, Michael Hartwell owns the world. He is the king of dawn, the guardian of quiet moments, the keeper of secrets that could shake the very foundations of everything these people believe about power and worth and the way the world works. The clock on the wall ticks towards 7 a.m., each second bringing him closer to the end of his shift, closer to the moment when he'll have to surrender his throne and disappear once again into the margins of other people's lives. What he doesn't know, what he can't possibly know, is that this morning will be different. That his peaceful ritual is about to be shattered by the kind of cruelty that reveals the true character of those who wield power. That the young executives approaching the building's entrance are carrying cameras and expectations and a hunger for viral content that will change everything. But somewhere in the depths of his weathered soul, Michael Hartwell is ready for whatever comes next. The morning silence shatters like glass against concrete. They burst through the revolving doors like a storm front, their laughter sharp and brittle in the cathedral quiet of the lobby. 3 of them, maybe 4. It's hard to tell where one designer suit ends and another begins. They move with the casual arrogance of people who have never doubted their place in the world, never questioned whether they deserve the space they occupy or the air they breathe. Michael feels them before he sees them. The energy shifts, crackling with the kind of electricity that comes before lightning strikes. His coffee cup pauses halfway to his lips as his peripheral vision catches the blur of motion, the invasion of his sanctuary by forces he recognizes but had hoped to avoid this morning. The leader of the pack is tall and lean, his suit probably worth more than Michael makes in 6 months. His hair is perfectly styled, each strand positioned with the precision of someone who spends more on grooming than most families spend on groceries. This is Derek Chamberlain, senior account executive rising star, the kind of man who measures his worth by the number of zeros in his bonus and the speed of his Tesla. Behind him, Sarah Martinez clicks across the marble in heels that announce her arrival like a drumbeat. Her smartphone is already in her hand, thumb scrolling through social media feeds with the practiced efficiency of someone who lives for the next dopamine hit. She's hunting for content, always hunting, her eyes scanning the world through the lens of potential virality. The third member of their trio is James Chen, newer to the company, but eager to prove he belongs in their exclusive circle. He carries a coffee tray from the expensive shop across the street, the kind of gesture that screams desperate approval seeking to anyone paying attention. His laugh is just a fraction too loud, his agreement just a moment too quick. They're discussing their weekend plans, voices carrying across the lobby with the casual dismissal of people who have never had to worry about being overheard. Ski trips to Aspen, dinner reservations at restaurants with month-long waiting lists, the kind of problems that aren't really problems at all. And then Derek's eyes land on Michael. Well, he says, his voice dropping to a stage whisper that somehow manages to fill the entire space. Look what we have here. The others turn, following his gaze to the corner where Michael sits with his simple ceramic mug and his quiet dignity. In the harsh morning light streaming through the windows, every worn thread of his uniform is visible, every scuff on his shoes exposed like evidence of some unspoken crime. Is that... Sarah's voice trails off as she processes the scene, her social media-trained brain already calculating angles and opportunities. Oh my God, is he actually sitting in the client seating area? Michael's fingers tighten imperceptibly around his mug. He can feel their attention like a physical weight, pressing down on him with the suffocating pressure of judgment. But he doesn't move. Not yet. This is still his moment. Still his 15 minutes of peace in a world that offers so little of it. That's rich. Derek continues, his voice gaining momentum as he feeds off his companion's attention. The janitor thinks he's a client. What's next? Is he going to ask for a meeting with the partners? James laughs, the sound nervous and eager. Maybe he's here for the executive bathroom privileges, but it's Sarah who spots the real opportunity. Her phone is already in position, camera app open, finger hovering over the record button, with the predatory focus of a hunter who has just spotted perfect prey. This is gold, she whispers, but loud enough for Michael to hear every word. Delusional janitor thinks he belongs in the executive lobby. The internet is going to eat this up. Michael's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. He's weathered worse storms than this, faced more devastating betrayals than anything these children could dream up. But there's something particularly cruel about being reduced to entertainment, about having your quiet dignity transformed into someone else's content. They approach his corner like a pack of well-dressed predators, their footsteps echoing off the marble with military precision. Derek takes point, his presence filling the space around Michael's chair with an aggressive confidence that demands attention. "Excuse me," Derek says, his tone dripping with false politeness. "I think you might be confused about where you're supposed to be." Michael looks up slowly, his eyes meeting Derek's through his wire-rimmed glasses. There's no anger there, no embarrassment, just a steady calm that somehow makes Derek shift uncomfortably. "This is the client seating area," Derek continues, his voice growing louder as if volume could compensate for the lack of reaction he's getting. "For actual clients, people who you know matter to the business." Sarah's phone is recording now, capturing every second of what she's certain will be her next viral moment. She can already see the comments, the shares, the sweet validation of internet approval flooding her notifications. "Come on, man," James adds, trying to sound reasonable despite the cruelty of the situation. "There's got to be a break room or something where you can drink your coffee. This just isn't appropriate." Michael takes a slow sip of his coffee, the liquid warm and comforting against the chill of their contempt. He could tell them about appropriate. He could explain that he helped design the very chair they're trying to remove him from, that his signature is on documents buried in filing cabinets upstairs, that their jobs exist because of foundations he helped lay years before they even dreamed of wearing suits. But silence has become his armor and humility his shield. "Are you even listening?" Derek's voice cracks with frustration. "Do you understand English? I'm talking to you." The lobby has begun to fill with other early arrivals, drawn by the commotion like rubberneckers at an accident scene. Some pretend not to notice, hurrying past with their eyes fixed on their phones. Others linger, torn between discomfort and curiosity, unsure whether they're witnessing justice or cruelty. Michael stands slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. He's taller than Derek expected, his presence somehow larger, despite the worn uniform and humble circumstances. For just a moment, something flickers in Derek's eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps, or a recognition that this isn't going according to script. "Thank you," Michael says simply, his voice carrying a weight that none of them understand. "For reminding me." He pours the remainder of his coffee back into his thermos with careful precision, each movement economical and purposeful. There's no hurry in his actions, no sense of shame or defeat. If anything, there's a strange dignity in his compliance, a grace that makes their victory feel somehow hollow. Sarah's phone captures it all, the slow pour, the careful capping of the thermos, the way Michael straightens his uniform jacket before stepping away from the chair. She's already composing the caption in her head. Entitled janitor, gets reality check from real professionals. But as Michael walks past them toward the elevators, something in his bearing gives Derek pause. There's no slouch of defeat in those shoulders, no hurried shuffle of embarrassment in his step. Instead, there's something almost regal in the way he moves, as if he's not retreating, but simply choosing a different battlefield. "Have a blessed day," Michael says as the elevator doors open, his words directed at no one and everyone. The doors close with a soft whisper, leaving the three executives standing in the lobby with their phones and their laughter and their absolute certainty that they've just taught someone an important lesson about knowing their place. What they don't realize is that they've just made the biggest mistake of their professional lives. What they can't possibly know is that the man they just humiliated holds more power over their futures than all their connections and ambitions combined. But upstairs, in an office they've never been invited to enter, decisions are already being made that will change everything they think they know about power, respect, and the true cost of cruelty. Sometimes the greatest fall begins with the deepest trust. 23 years ago, Michael Hartwell's name blazed across the city's skyline in steel and glass monuments to human ambition. The Hartwell Group wasn't just a company, it was an empire built on vision, integrity, and the revolutionary belief that architecture could heal the wounds between earth and sky. Michael didn't just design buildings, he crafted dreams in concrete and steel, creating spaces where lives could unfold and futures could take root. The corner office on the 47th floor of Meridian Tower, the very building where he now pushes a mop, once belonged to him. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a god's-eye view of the city he was reshaping, one blueprint at a time. His desk, carved from a single piece of Brazilian walnut, held the weight of contracts worth hundreds of millions. The walls displayed architectural awards that meant more to him than the money they represented. Recognition that his work mattered, that beauty and function could dance together in perfect harmony. Michael had been 35 then, hungry with the kind of ambition that burns clean and bright. His firm employed over 300 people, from junior draftsmen to master craftsmen, all united by his vision of creating structures that would outlast the people who built them. The Hartwell Group's signature was evident throughout the city: the curved glass facade of the Riverside Medical Center, the soaring spires of the Cultural Arts Complex, the sustainable housing development that had won international acclaim. But success had attracted parasites. Thomas Brennan and Richard Walsh had been more than business partners. They had been his closest friends, his trusted confidants, the men he'd shared dreams with during late nights over architectural drawings and expensive whiskey. Tom, with his silver tongue and political connections, handled the client relationships and city council negotiations. Rick, a financial wizard who could make numbers dance like poetry, managed the money with an expertise that had made them all wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. The three men had been inseparable, their wives had been friends, their children had played together in backyards that overlooked the city they were building together. Michael had trusted them with everything: his company, his reputation, his future. He had signed documents without reading them because he trusted their judgment. He had given power of attorney because he believed in their friendship. He had put their names on accounts because partnership meant sharing everything, even vulnerability. The betrayal hadn't come like a thunderclap. It had crept in quietly, silently, like water seeping through a foundation, until the whole structure was compromised. For months, maybe years, Tom and Rick had been moving money, redirecting contracts, positioning themselves to survive what they were about to unleash. The trap had been perfectly orchestrated. A series of project delays, cost overruns that appeared to be Michael's fault, client complaints that seemed to target his competence specifically. The company's board of directors, stacked with Tom and Rick's allies, began to question his leadership. Whispers in the industry suggested he was losing his edge, making rookie mistakes, perhaps even skimming funds. Michael had fought back, of course. He'd hired investigators, demanded audits, called emergency board meetings where he'd presented evidence of financial irregularities that pointed away from him and toward his partners. But Tom and Rick had been prepared for this too. They had documentation that painted Michael as unstable, paranoid, a brilliant architect whose mind was cracking under pressure. The final blow had come on a Tuesday morning in October. Michael had arrived at his office to find security guards waiting, along with lawyers bearing injunctions and restraining orders. The board had voted unanimously to remove him as CEO, citing fiduciary irresponsibility and mental instability. His access to company accounts was frozen. His company credit cards were cancelled. His parking space was reassigned. Within 24 hours, he'd gone from millionaire to pariah. The legal battles had consumed the next 2 years of his life. Every lawyer in the city seemed to have a conflict of interest with the Hartwell Group. The few who would take his case demanded retainers he could no longer afford. The media, fed carefully crafted stories by Tom and Rick's public relations team, painted him as a cautionary tale of success gone wrong, a man who'd let power corrupt his judgment. His wife, Margaret, had tried to stand by him at first, but as their assets were frozen, as their social circle abandoned them, as the mansion they'd called home went into foreclosure, the strain had proven too much. She'd filed for divorce on a Friday afternoon, taking their daughter Emma with her to her mother's house in Connecticut. The papers had been served while Michael was living in a one-bedroom apartment above a Chinese restaurant, sleeping on a mattress on the floor and living off convenience store food. "I can't watch you destroy yourself," Margaret had said during their last conversation. "Emma needs stability, and you need help I can't give you." The worst part hadn't been losing the money or the recognition or even the company he'd built from nothing. The worst part had been watching his teenage daughter look at him with a mixture of pity and embarrassment, seeing in her eyes the reflection of what he'd become, a broken man clinging to conspiracy theories and lost glory. By the time Michael had finally accepted that he would never reclaim his old life, Tom and Rick had rebranded the company as Brennan and Walsh Development. They'd kept his designs, his contracts, his vision, but erased his name from every blueprint and cornerstone. The buildings he'd dreamed into existence now bore their signatures, their legacy written over his like palimpsest. Michael had considered giving up, not in the dramatic sense of grand gestures, but in the quiet way that broken men contemplate simply stopping, simply not continuing the fight anymore. He'd stood on bridges and wondered what it would feel like to fly. He'd sat in his car in closed garages and contemplated the mathematics of carbon monoxide. But something had pulled him back from that edge. Maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was the faint hope that someday Emma would look for him and find something worth finding. Maybe it was just the architect in him, the part that believed broken structures could be rebuilt if you were willing to start from the foundation. The job at Meridian Tower had come through a temp agency that didn't do background checks. Night janitor, minimum wage, invisible work for invisible people. Michael had taken it because he needed to eat, but he'd kept it because there was something profoundly humbling about honest labor, something healing about making things clean and orderly in a world that had become chaos. For 15 years, he'd walked these hallways, cleaned these offices, emptied these trash cans. He'd watched Tom and Rick's company flourish in the building he'd designed, seen them arrive in expensive cars and leave for expensive vacations. They'd never recognized him in his janitor's uniform, never looked closely enough to see the ghost of their former partner mopping the floors of his own creation. Michael had made peace with anonymity. He'd found a strange satisfaction in being overlooked, in moving through the world without the weight of expectation or the burden of other people's ambitions. He'd learned that dignity didn't require recognition, that worth wasn't measured by bank accounts or business cards, but he'd never forgotten and he'd never stopped planning. The bank accounts Tom and Rick thought they'd emptied had been decoys. The real money, the money from international contracts and overseas investments, had been hidden in places they'd never thought to look. Michael had been many things, but he'd never been stupid. While they were stealing millions, he'd been protecting hundreds of millions. For 23 years, he'd been patient. For 23 years, he'd been invisible. For 23 years, he'd been waiting for the perfect moment to remind the world that Michael Hartwell was never really gone. And now, as he stands in the supply closet of the building he once owned, listening to the echoes of laughter from the executives who just humiliated him, Michael allows himself a small smile. Because today, the waiting ends. The most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming. Michael's hands move with practiced efficiency across Derek's mahogany desk, the microfiber cloth collecting dust motes that dance in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the corner office windows. The irony isn't lost on him. This desk, this view, this entire floor plan came from blueprints he'd sketched 24 years ago during sleepless nights fueled by ambition and black coffee. Derek's office reeks of expensive cologne and fresh leather, the scent of a man trying to buy respectability. Framed photographs line the credenza. Derek shaking hands with minor celebrities. Derek at charity galas. Derek accepting awards for projects he had nothing to do with creating. The largest frame holds his Harvard MBA, a degree that cost more than most people's houses, but taught him nothing about the kind of strategic thinking required to survive what's coming. As Michael empties the wastebasket, his eyes scan the scattered documents on Derek's desk. Quarterly reports, client proposals, internal memos, the paper trail of a company built on other people's foundations. One memo catches his attention. A proposal to demolish the historic Riverside Medical Center to make way for luxury condominiums. The same medical center Michael had designed to serve the community's most vulnerable populations, now just another commodity to be flipped for profit. The cleaning cartwheels whisper against carpet as Michael moves to Sarah's cubicle 3 floors down. Her space is chaos masquerading as creativity, empty energy drink cans stacked like metallic monuments to caffeine addiction, post-it notes covering every surface in a rainbow of procrastination. Her computer screen still glows with the social media posts from this morning, the video of Michael's humiliation already garnering hundreds of views and comments, dripping with casual cruelty. "Homeless guy thinks he's a client," reads one comment. "This is why we need better security," suggests another. Sarah has pinned the post, responding to comments with crying laughter emojis and promises of more content from the corporate world. Michael's jaw tightens imperceptibly as he reads the commentary, each word a small blade designed to cut away whatever dignity a person might have left. These people have made sport of human suffering, turned his quiet moment of peace into their entertainment. They've never known what it feels like to lose everything, to rebuild yourself from nothing, to find strength in the spaces where others see only weakness. But Michael has learned patience in ways these children never could. He's discovered that true power isn't loud or flashy. It's silent, patient, absolute. Like water wearing away stone drop by drop until mountains crumble. James's office tells a different story. Newer to the company, he's still trying to prove he belongs among the predators. His desk is obsessively organized, every pen in its designated holder, every document filed with military precision. A small cactus sits by his window, the only living thing brave enough to survive in this sterile environment. On his bookshelf, business philosophy texts gather dust beside leadership manuals that promise to unlock the secrets of success. A handwritten note on James's desk catches Michael's attention. Remember to follow up with the pension fund managers about the Hartwell properties. The irony is exquisite. James is handling the sale of buildings that Michael designed, selling his own legacy back to him through layers of corporate shell games and legal maneuvering. Michael allows himself a moment of bitter amusement as he dusts around the cactus. This young man has no idea he's been handling paperwork for transactions that will ultimately benefit the very person he helped humiliate this morning. The pension funds, the investment groups, the mysterious overseas buyers. They're all connected to a web of financial instruments that Michael has been weaving for 23 years. The executive break room buzzes with conversation as Michael enters to restock supplies. The coffee here costs more per pound than his weekly grocery budget, imported from small farms in Colombia and prepared by a machine that probably cost more than most people's cars. The executives cluster around the granite island, their voices carrying the casual arrogance of people who believe they're the main characters in everyone else's story. "Did you see Sarah's post about the janitor?" Derek's voice carries across the room. 3,000 views already. I told her she should start a series, corporate reality checks or something. It's perfect content. Sarah agrees, stirring sugar into her artisanal coffee. People love seeing entitled behavior get shut down, makes them feel better about their own lives. Michael moves around them like a ghost, refilling paper towel dispensers and checking soap levels while they discuss his humiliation as if he's not even there. Their blindness to his presence is complete, absolute. He's achieved a level of invisibility that would impress magicians, hiding in plain sight among people too self-absorbed to recognize danger when it's standing 3 feet away. The best part, James adds, eager to join the conversation, was how he just walked away, no fight, no drama, just defeated. If only they knew. If only they could see beyond the uniform and the humble circumstances to the mind that's been playing chess while they've been playing checkers. Every night for 15 years, Michael has walked these halls, learning their habits, their weaknesses, their deepest fears whispered into phones they thought no one else could hear. He knows Derek's gambling problem, the one that's eating through his trust fund faster than his salary can replenish it. He's seen the love letters Sarah prints from her company email, evidence of an affair with a married client that could destroy her career in an instant. He's found James's medical bills in the trash, the ones that reveal a health condition he's been hiding from the company's insurance reviewers. But Michael isn't interested in their small sins and petty secrets. He's playing a much larger game, one that requires surgical precision and perfect timing. Revenge served cold isn't just about temperature. It's about patience, about letting your enemies build their own gallows while you smile and hand them rope. The conversation shifts to weekend plans, expensive restaurants and exclusive clubs where they'll spend more on dinner than Michael makes in a month. They're drunk on their own importance, high on the kind of power that comes from believing you're untouchable. "You know what I love about this job?" Derek says, leaning against the counter with studied casualness. "It's not just about the money. It's about being part of something bigger, something that matters. We're shaping the future of this city." Michael's hand pauses on the coffee machine he's cleaning, shaping the future, with designs stolen from better men, with buildings bought with blood money, with a legacy built on betrayal and maintained through willful blindness. These people wouldn't recognize real vision if it cleaned their offices every night, but they're about to learn. As Michael finishes his work and prepares to leave, he catches a glimpse of himself in the break room's polished steel refrigerator. The reflection shows a tired man in a faded uniform, someone who could easily be mistaken for broken, defeated, forgotten. But behind his wire-rimmed glasses, his eyes burn with the kind of fire that has been banked but never extinguished. Tomorrow will bring changes these executives can't imagine. Lawyers will make phone calls, documents will be filed, ownership papers will change hands with the kind of corporate sleight of hand that happens in boardrooms while the pawns below remain oblivious. Michael has spent 23 years becoming invisible, learning patience, perfecting the art of strategic silence. He's let them build their careers on his foundation, let them grow fat and lazy with success they never earned. But every empire built on lies eventually faces a reckoning. And sometimes that reckoning comes wearing a janitor's uniform and carrying a mop bucket full of secrets that can wash away everything these people think they know about power. The elevator carries Michael down to the lobby, past floors filled with people who have no idea their world is about to change. As the doors open onto the marble expanse where his morning humiliation played out, he allows himself one final look at the corner chair that started it all. Tomorrow, when he sits in that chair again, he won't be wearing a uniform. Tomorrow, the invisible man will finally be seen. And when he is, the executives who thought they'd taught him a lesson about knowing his place will discover that some lessons come with a price they could never afford to pay. The first sign of an earthquake isn't the shaking, it's the silence. At 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday that started like any other, the phones in Meridian Tower begin ringing with the kind of urgency that makes seasoned executives abandon their lunch meetings and rush back to their offices. The news spreads through the building like wildfire consuming dry timber, each conversation adding fuel to a growing inferno of confusion and panic. It can't be true. Margaret Foster, the building's property manager, whispers into her phone, her usually composed voice cracking under the weight of impossibility. She's been managing this tower for 12 years, has seen corporate buyouts and hostile takeovers, but nothing like this, nothing this swift, this absolute, this surgically precise. The documents are real, the signatures are authentic. The money has already transferred through a maze of international banks and offshore accounts that would make money laundering specialists weep with admiration. Meridian Tower, all 47 floors of steel, glass, and corporate ambition, has been sold to a company called Hartwell Holdings. Derek receives the news while on his third martini at an upscale restaurant, trying to impress a client with stories of his latest conquests. His phone buzzes with messages that make his blood run cold. Building sold. New ownership effective immediately. Emergency meeting at 4 p.m. Holy shit, we might all be fired. The client, a silver-haired developer who's been in the business longer than Derek has been alive, watches the color drain from the young executive's face with professional interest. Bad news? He asks, swirling his own drink with the casual confidence of someone who's weathered enough storms to recognize the signs. I have to go. Derek stammers, throwing down his credit card without checking the bill. His hands shake as he tries to process what he's reading. Hartwell Holdings. The name feels familiar, like a song heard in childhood but half forgotten. Why does it sound so familiar? Sarah learns about the sale while live streaming to her followers, mid-sentence in a rant about authentic corporate culture. When her phone explodes with notifications, her face goes white as she reads the messages, her perfectly applied makeup suddenly looking garish under the harsh office lighting. Guys, I'm going to have to end this stream, she says to her confused audience. Something's happening. The comments flood in immediately. What's wrong? You look scared. Is this real or performance art? But Sarah has already disconnected, her social media empire forgotten in the face of real-world consequences that can't be filtered or edited or deleted with the touch of a button. James is in the middle of reviewing pension fund documents when his supervisor bursts into his cubicle without knocking. Drop everything, the older man says, his face gray with stress. We need to figure out who Hartwell Holdings is, and we need to figure it out now. Our jobs might depend on it. The name hits James like a physical blow. Hartwell. He's been seeing that name for weeks in the documents he's been processing, the properties he's been cataloging, the investments he's been tracking. But it was always in small print, always buried in subsections and amendments, always easy to overlook. Now it's blazing across his computer screen in bold letters that seem to mock his earlier blindness. The building's main conference room fills with executives who look like survivors of a corporate apocalypse. Partners who usually radiate confidence sit hunched over their phones, desperately calling contacts and favors, and anyone who might have inside information about this mysterious new owner. The air is thick with expensive cologne, nervous sweat, and the acidic scent of fear. What do we know? Demands Richard Walsh, Tom Brennan's surviving partner and current CEO of the company that used to be called the Hartwell Group. At 72, he's weathered hostile takeovers before, but this feels different. This feels personal. Nothing concrete, admits the head of legal, a sharp-eyed woman who's built her career on knowing everything about everyone. Hartwell Holdings is incorporated in Delaware, with ownership traced through a web of shell companies that would take forensic accountants months to unravel. The money came from Swiss banks, Cayman Island accounts, and what appears to be a portfolio of international real estate investments. How much did they pay? Someone asks. Market value plus 15%, comes the reply. Cash deal. No financing, no contingencies, no inspection period. They bought this building the way most people buy coffee. The number hangs in the air like a guillotine blade. They're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, the kind of money that doesn't just exist. It's built, accumulated, invested over decades of careful planning. This isn't new money or tech money or inheritance money. This is old power, the kind that moves quietly and strikes without warning. Sir, a junior associate interrupts, his voice barely above a whisper. I think I found something. The room falls silent as he connects his laptop to the main display. Financial records scroll across the screen, a maze of numbers and dates and corporate entities that would confuse anyone not trained in following money trails. But one name keeps appearing, threading through transactions dating back over 2 decades. Michael Hartwell, the associate says, his voice gaining strength as he realizes the magnitude of what he's discovered. The original Michael Hartwell, the architect. He never really went away. Richard Walsh feels the blood drain from his face. The name he thought he'd buried 23 years ago rises from its grave like something out of a horror movie. That's impossible, he whispers. We destroyed him. We took everything. He was broken, defeated, gone. But the evidence is undeniable. Purchase records for properties they thought they'd stolen. Investment portfolios they thought they'd emptied. International contracts they thought they'd claimed. Michael Hartwell hadn't been destroyed. He'd been building, planning, accumulating power in places they never thought to look. He's been buying back his own buildings. The associate continues, his voice gaining momentum with each revelation. The medical center, the arts complex, the housing development, everything the original Hartwell Group ever created. He's been acquiring them through different companies, different names, but it's all him. And now he owns the building we work in. Richard finishes, the words tasting like ashes in his mouth. The room erupts in panicked conversations, partners calling their lawyers, executives updating their resumes, junior staff wondering if they'll have jobs tomorrow. But beneath the chaos, a deeper realization is taking hold. This isn't just a corporate acquisition. This is a reckoning 23 years in the making. Derek bursts through the conference room doors, his expensive suit wrinkled from his rushed return, his perfect hair disheveled by stress and speed. What the hell is happening? He demands. I'm getting calls from clients asking if we're going out of business. Worse, Richard says, his voice hollow with the weight of impending doom. We're about to face our past. As if summoned by the mention of consequences, Margaret Foster appears in the doorway, her face pale but determined. Behind her stands a man in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his eyes sharp with the kind of intelligence that sees everything and reveals nothing. Gentlemen, ladies, the stranger says, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. My name is Jonathan Pierce. I represent Hartwell Holdings. I'm here to inform you that the new ownership will be taking immediate control of this property and all operations within. What does that mean for our lease? Someone asks. Pierce smiles, but there's no warmth in the expression. All existing contracts and agreements will be reviewed by the new ownership. Some may be honored. Others, he lets the sentence hang like a noose. Others may require renegotiation. When do we meet the new owner? Richard demands, trying to summon the authority he once wielded. Tomorrow morning, Pierce replies. 10 a.m. sharp, conference room A on the 47th floor. The owner will be conducting personal interviews with all senior staff. The 47th floor, Michael's old office. The corner suite, where he once planned the future of the city, where he once trusted friends who would ultimately destroy him. The poetry of it isn't lost on anyone in the room. As Pierce leaves, the executives are left to contemplate a future that suddenly looks very different from the one they'd planned. The building around them feels different now, as if the walls themselves are watching, waiting to see how this story ends. Outside the conference room windows, the city sprawls in all directions, a testament to human ambition and architectural vision. Somewhere in those streets, in a modest apartment above a convenience store, a man is laying out a suit he hasn't worn in 23 years, preparing for a reunion that will redefine everything these people think they know about power, justice, and the true cost of betrayal. The phone calls continue through the night, desperate attempts to find leverage, allies, escape routes. But some storms can't be weathered, some reckonings can't be avoided, and tomorrow the invisible man will finally step into the light. The moment when fiction becomes reality is when the powerless remember they never really were. At 9:45 a.m., the 47th floor of Meridian Tower buzzes with the nervous energy of condemned prisoners waiting for their final meal. The executives cluster in small groups outside Conference Room A, their designer suits armor against an enemy they still don't fully understand. Whispered conversations die abruptly when footsteps approach, only to resume when the threat passes by without stopping. Derek paces near the windows, his usual confidence replaced by the jittery movements of a man who's lost control of his own narrative. His perfectly styled hair shows signs of stress, small imperfections that betray the sleepless night he's spent researching Hartwell Holdings, finding nothing but digital shadows and corporate dead ends. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he mutters to Sarah, who's been unusually quiet since arriving. "There's no way the janitor we humiliated yesterday is connected to this." Sarah's phone remains untouched in her purse. The first time in years she's gone more than 5 minutes without checking her social media feeds. The confidence that usually radiates from her like heat from a flame has been extinguished, replaced by the cold recognition that some stories don't have filters, some realities can't be edited. Her viral video from yesterday feels like evidence at a crime scene now, proof of cruelty that seemed harmless until consequences appeared on the horizon. James stands apart from the others, his obsessively organized mind working through the financial documents he's been processing for weeks. The pattern is becoming clear now, visible in ways it wasn't when he was focused on individual trees instead of the forest. Every property acquisition, every investment vehicle, every carefully structured transaction, they all point back to one source, one mind orchestrating a symphony of financial revenge that's been 23 years in the making. Richard Walsh sits alone at the conference table, his 72-year-old hands trembling slightly as he studies documents that detail the empire he thought he'd stolen. The young lawyer beside him, an expensive shark from the most prestigious firm in the city, looks increasingly pale as she reviews contracts and ownership papers that appear to be absolutely bulletproof. There has to be a way out. Richard whispers, his voice carrying the desperation of a man who's finally realized that some sins have compound interest. Some loophole, some technicality. We can't just lose everything. The lawyer's silence speaks volumes. At exactly 10 guards a.m., the conference room doors open. Jonathan Pierce enters first, his silver hair catching the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that offer a God's view of the city below. Behind him walks a figure that makes every conversation stop, every breath catch, every assumption about power and justice and the way the world works crumble like ancient stone. Michael Hartwell enters wearing a charcoal grey suit that probably costs more than Derek's car. The fabric falls perfectly across shoulders that no longer carry the weight of servitude, only the quiet confidence of a man who's learned to wield power like a surgeon's scalpel. His wire-rimmed glasses have been replaced by contacts that reveal eyes sharp enough to cut diamonds. The stooped posture of a night janitor has been replaced by the bearing of a man who owns not just this building, but the very air these people breathe. But it's the transformation in his presence that's most startling. Yesterday's invisible man has become today's undeniable force of nature. He moves across the marble floor with the measured pace of someone who has all the time in the world, because time itself belongs to him. Derek's face goes through a series of expressions that would be comical if they weren't so devastating. Confusion melts into recognition. Recognition into disbelief, disbelief into the kind of terror that comes from realizing you've been playing chess against a grandmaster while thinking you were winning at checkers. That's... Sarah's voice trails off as her social media-trained brain struggles to process reality without filters or effects. The man she filmed yesterday, the delusional janitor, she turned into content for her followers, is standing before them in a suit that costs more than she makes in 6 months. Impossible, James whispers, but the financial documents in his hands tell a different story. The numbers don't lie, even when reality feels like a fever dream. Michael takes his place at the head of the conference table, the same table where decisions affecting thousands of lives are made, where the future of the city is planned, where power brokers gather to divide the world among themselves. But today, there's only one power broker in the room, and his name has been carved into the foundation of this building since before most of these people were born. "Good morning," Michael says, his voice carrying the same quiet dignity it held yesterday when they mocked him, but now amplified by the authority of absolute control. "I believe some of you know me, though perhaps not in the context you're accustomed to." The silence in the room is profound, broken only by the soft hum of the building's ventilation system and the distant sound of traffic far below. Even the city itself seems to be holding its breath. "Richard," Michael continues, his gaze settling on the man who was once his closest friend, who once shared dreams and whiskey and plans for changing the world. "You look older." Richard Walsh's face has gone grey, the colour of old concrete. His hands shake as he tries to form words that refuse to come. 23 years of guilt and buried conscience crash over him like a tsunami, washing away decades of rationalization and willful forgetting. "Michael, we thought you were..." Richard's voice breaks like glass against stone. "We thought you were gone." "Gone?" Michael's smile holds no warmth, only the mathematical precision of justice long delayed. "I've been here all along, cleaning your offices, emptying your trash, listening to your conversations about my stolen buildings. Did you know that when you whisper secrets into phones at 2 in the morning, they echo through ventilation systems? That when you throw away documents you think no one will read, invisible people sometimes find them very interesting?" The revelation hits them like a physical blow. 15 years of private conversations, discarded evidence, carelessly spoken confessions, all witnessed by the man they'd destroyed, the ghost they'd refused to see. Derek finds his voice first, his salesman's instincts kicking in even as his world collapses. "Look, yesterday was just... we didn't know. If we had known who you were... if you had known who I was..." Michael interrupts, his voice cutting through Derek's desperation like a blade through silk. "You would have what? Treated me with dignity? Respected my humanity? Or would you have simply been more careful about filming your cruelty?" Sarah's phone buzzes with notifications. Her viral video from yesterday is exploding with new views and comments as word spreads about the mysterious new owner of Meridian Tower. But she can't bring herself to look at the screen, can't face the monster she created when she thought consequences were something that happened to other people. The beautiful thing about being invisible Michael continues, settling back in his chair with the casual confidence of a man who holds all the cards, is that you see everything. Every lie told in conference calls, every corner cut on safety inspections, every bribe disguised as consulting fees. Every single decision made in this building for the past 15 years has been witnessed by someone you never bothered to see. James realizes his hands are shaking as the full magnitude of their situation becomes clear. This isn't just about owning a building. It's about owning their secrets, their careers, their futures. Everything they've built on the foundation of Michael's stolen empire is now subject to the judgment of the man they helped destroy. "What do you want?" Richard finally manages to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. Michael's smile grows wider, but there's still no warmth in it. "Want? Richard, I already have everything I want. I own this building. I own the medical center you were planning to demolish. I own the arts complex you've been strip mining for profit. I own the housing development you've been neglecting until it becomes valuable enough to gentrify." He stands, moving to the windows that offer a panoramic view of the city he helped build. "I own my legacy, my vision, my life's work. The question isn't what I want, it's what you have left to offer." The executives exchange glances like drowning people looking for life preservers that don't exist. Their power, their connections, their carefully cultivated networks of influence, all of it suddenly feels as insubstantial as morning mist. But Michael isn't finished. He turns back to face them, and in his eyes, they see not just the man they humiliated yesterday, but the architect who dreamed their world into existence, the visionary who trusted the wrong people, the ghost who never really died, just learned to haunt more effectively. "Tomorrow," Michael says, his voice carrying the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence, "we'll discuss the future of your employment, your contracts, and your place in the empire you helped steal from me. Some of you may find that mercy is possible. Others—" He lets the sentence hang in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. "Others may discover that 23 years is a long time to think about justice." True power isn't about crushing your enemies, it's about showing them who they really are. The next morning arrives with the weight of Judgment Day. One by one, they're called into Michael's office, the corner suite that was once his sanctuary, now transformed into a courtroom where 23 years of injustice will finally be balanced on the scales of consequence. Derek enters first, his usual swagger replaced by the hesitant shuffle of a man walking toward his own execution. The office has been completely redesigned overnight. Gone are the gaudy displays of wealth and the desperate monuments to ego. In their place, Michael has hung architectural drawings of the buildings he created, photographs of the communities his design served, testimonials from families whose lives were changed by spaces he dreamed into existence. "Sit," Michael says, not looking up from the documents spread across his desk. The morning light streaming through the windows catches the silver in his hair, lending him an almost ethereal quality. Less human than force of nature, more reckoning than man. Derek's hands shake as he lowers himself into the chair across from the desk that was once his symbol of power. "Mr. Hartwell, I want you to know that yesterday you filmed my humiliation for entertainment." Michael interrupts, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You turned a man's quiet dignity into content for strangers to mock. You reduced human worth to viral views and social media engagement." The words land like physical blows, each one stripping away another layer of Derek's carefully constructed self-image. He tries to speak, to explain, to apologize, but Michael raises a hand for silence. "I've been watching you for 3 years, Derek. I've seen how you treat the security guards whose names you've never learned, the cleaning staff you walk past like they're furniture, the junior employees whose ideas you steal without credit. Yesterday wasn't an aberration. It was who you've always been." Michael slides a folder across the desk. Derek's trembling fingers open it to reveal documents that make his blood freeze. Records of his gambling debts, evidence of client funds used for personal expenses, proof of insider trading that would send him to federal prison if it ever saw the light of day. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately, Michael continues with surgical precision. Your company credit cards have been cancelled, your access revoked, your office cleared. Security will escort you from the building in 10 minutes. Please, Derek whispers, his voice breaking like a teenager's. I have debts, obligations, my father's medical bills, my mother's care facility. I'll lose everything. Everything. Michael's eyebrow arches with dark amusement. You're worried about losing everything? How fascinating. I wonder what that feels like. But then something shifts in Michael's expression. A flicker of something that might be compassion, or perhaps just the memory of his own daughter, his own family destroyed by others' greed. Your severance package will cover 6 months' salary, Michael says finally. Use it wisely. Learn to live within your means. Discover what it feels like to work honestly for honest wages. And Derek, the young man looks up hopefully. The gambling stops now. Consider this your intervention. Derek nods frantically, tears streaming down his face as security arrives to escort him out. The man who entered as a predator leaves as prey, forever changed by an encounter with consequences he never thought would find him. Sarah's interview unfolds differently. She enters the office with her phone already recording, her influencer instincts overriding her survival sense. This is actually perfect content, she says, apparently unable to read the room. The revenge story, the corporate drama, my followers are going to eat this up. Michael watches her with the fascination of a scientist observing a particularly toxic specimen. Turn off the camera, Sarah. But this is historic, she protests, angle shifting for better lighting. The janitor who became the boss. It's like a real-life fairy tale. We could probably get a Netflix deal out of this. Turn off the camera. Something in his voice finally penetrates her social media haze. She lowers the phone with reluctance, like an addict being separated from their fix. Do you know what I found in your computer files? Michael asks, opening a tablet that displays screenshots of Sarah's social media accounts. 736 posts in the last year, featuring other people's private moments, embarrassing photos taken without consent, overheard conversations turned into content, personal struggles transformed into entertainment. Sarah's confident mask begins to slip as image after image scrolls past. Colleagues caught in unflattering moments, private conversations she'd live-streamed without permission, human suffering she'd packaged for public consumption. You've built your entire career on other people's pain, Michael continues relentlessly. Every view, every like, every dollar of influence money has come from commodifying human vulnerability. It's just content, Sarah says weakly. Everyone does it. It's how the world works now. No, Michael corrects, his voice cutting through her rationalizations like a scalpel. It's how your world works, but your world ends today. He slides termination papers across the desk. All your company accounts will be deleted. Your access to the corporate network revoked. Your influencer partnerships terminated for violation of privacy clauses in your employment contract. Sarah's face goes white as the implications sink in. Without her corporate credentials, her follower count will plummet. Without her inside access, her content will become ordinary, forgettable, worthless. Her entire digital empire, built on the backs of others' humiliation, crumbles in real time. I'm giving you a choice, Michael says, his voice softening slightly. You can continue trying to monetize misery, chasing views and likes until you've hollowed out whatever soul you have left. Or you can learn what it means to create something meaningful, something that adds value to the world instead of extracting it. He hands her a business card. This is the contact information for a non-profit that documents the stories of homeless veterans. They need someone with your technical skills to help tell their stories with dignity and respect. The pay is minimal, but the work matters. Sarah takes the card with numb fingers. her social media-addled brain struggling to process the concept of work that doesn't revolve around engagement metrics and algorithmic approval. James's reckoning comes with unexpected mercy. When he enters the office, Michael can see the young man's genuine remorse, the weight of recognition that he'd participated in something cruel and meaningless. "I'm sorry," James says before Michael can speak. "Not because I got caught, not because you turned out to be powerful, but because what we did was wrong. I knew it was wrong when it was happening, and I did nothing to stop it." Michael studies him for a long moment, seeing something he recognizes, the capacity for growth, for change, for becoming better than the person you were yesterday. "You've been handling pension fund investments," Michael says finally. "Retirement savings for teachers, firefighters, public servants who've given their lives to serving others." James nods, waiting for the axe to fall. Those people trusted their futures to financial managers who would protect their dignity along with their dollars, Michael continues. Instead, they got executives who mock janitors for entertainment. He slides a different folder across the desk. "I'm transferring you to our Community Development Division. Your job will be managing investments in affordable housing projects, veteran support programs, and educational initiatives. The pay is the same, but the work actually matters." James's eyes widen with surprise and gratitude. You're not firing me? "I'm giving you a chance to earn redemption," Michael corrects. "Use it wisely." The final confrontation comes with Richard Walsh, the last surviving architect of Michael's betrayal. The old man enters the office like a condemned prisoner approaching the electric chair, his face gray with the weight of decades-old guilt. "Hello, Richard," Michael says simply. They sit in silence for a moment, two old men separated by mahogany and time and the unbridgeable gulf of betrayal. Outside the windows, the city sprawls in all directions, a testament to dreams built and dreams destroyed, to the eternal human cycle of creation and corruption. "I've been preparing for this conversation for 23 years, Richard says finally. "Rehearsing apologies, explanations, justifications, but sitting here now, facing you," he shakes his head. "There's nothing I can say that would matter." "No," Michael agrees, "there isn't. So what happens now? Prison, public humiliation, the destruction of everything I've built?" Michael leans back in his chair, studying the man who was once his closest friend, his most trusted partner, his brother in all but blood. "What happens now is you retire, immediately, permanently. Your shares in the company revert to the original Hartwell Foundation, where they'll be used to fund architectural education for underprivileged students." Richard's relief is palpable, but Michael isn't finished. "You'll also spend your remaining years making amends, not with money. You've already spent too much of mine. With service. There's a homeless shelter being built downtown. Your expertise is needed to ensure it's designed with dignity, not just efficiency." The old man nods slowly, understanding that he's being offered something more valuable than mercy. He's being offered the chance to use his remaining years for something meaningful. "One more thing," Michael adds as Richard stands to leave. "The shelter will be named the Thomas Brennan Memorial Center. Your partner deserves to be remembered for something other than betrayal." Richard stops at the door, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Why?" he whispers. "After everything we did to you, why show mercy?" Michael's smile holds 23 years of pain and wisdom and hard-earned peace. "Because mercy isn't about what you deserve, Richard. It's about who I choose to be." As the door closes behind the last ghost of his past, Michael sits alone in the office where his empire was stolen and his dreams were murdered. But today feels different. Today feels like resurrection. Outside his windows, the city continues its eternal dance of ambition and failure, of dreams built and dreams destroyed. But somewhere in those streets, 3 people are walking toward uncertain futures, with the weight of real consequences and the possibility of real redemption. And in his corner office, a man who learned that true power comes not from crushing your enemies, but from showing them a better way to be human, prepares to build something that will outlast them all. The measure of a man isn't where he falls, but how he rises and who he lifts with him. 3 months later, Michael Hartwell sits in the same corner chair where his journey began, sipping coffee from the same ceramic mug that witnessed his humiliation. But everything has changed. The morning light streams through windows that now overlook a city transforming under his renewed vision, where buildings designed for communities serve communities once again. The lobby buzzes with different energy now. Gone are the whispered conversations about quarterly profits and market manipulation. In their place, architects discuss sustainable housing projects, urban planners debate community green spaces, and social workers coordinate with designers to create spaces that heal rather than simply house. A young woman approaches the seating area, her tablet clutched nervously in her hands. She's maybe 25, fresh from graduate school, eyes bright with the kind of idealism that hasn't yet been beaten down by corporate cynicism. "Excuse me, Mr. Hartwell. I'm Maria Santos, the new junior architect. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity." Michael gestures to the chair beside him, the same chair where Derek used to hold court, where Sarah used to film her cruel content, where James used to seek approval from the wrong people. "Please sit. Tell me about your ideas." Maria's face lights up as she opens her tablet, revealing sketches for a community center designed with wheelchair accessibility, natural lighting that reduces depression, and spaces specifically created for children who might not have safe places to play. Her passion radiates from every line, every curve, every thoughtful detail. "These are beautiful," Michael says, studying her work with the appreciation of someone who understands that buildings are more than steel and concrete. They're dreams made manifest. "Who taught you to think about community impact?" "You did," Maria replies, her voice filled with quiet reverence. "I read every interview you gave before you disappeared. Your philosophy that architecture should serve humanity, not profit, it's what made me want to become an architect." Michael feels something shift in his chest, a warmth that has nothing to do with the coffee. This is what legacy truly means, not buildings with your name on them, but ideas that outlive you, principles that inspire others to create better worlds. Across the lobby, he spots a familiar figure emptying trash bins with quiet efficiency. It's Derek, dressed not in a designer suit, but in the simple uniform of the building's cleaning staff. Their eyes meet for a moment, and Derek nods, not with shame, but with something that might be gratitude. The gambling has stopped, the debts are being paid down slowly but steadily, and in his face, Michael sees the peace that comes from honest work and honest wages. "Mr. Hartwell?" Maria's voice brings him back to the present. "I heard about what happened here, what those executives did to you. It must have been difficult." Michael considers her words carefully, measuring them against 23 years of pain and the hard-won wisdom that followed. "Do you know what I learned during those 15 years of being invisible?" Maria shakes her head, leaning forward with the attention of someone hungry for knowledge. "I learned that dignity isn't something others can give you or take away," Michael says, his voice carrying the weight of truth earned through suffering. "It's something you carry within yourself. Those executives thought they were humiliating me, but they were only revealing who they really were." He pauses, watching the morning light dance across his architectural drawings, pinned to the lobby walls, not monuments to ego, but blueprints for communities. "The real tragedy wasn't what they did to me," he continues. "It was what they were doing to themselves. Every act of cruelty, every moment of casual contempt, every choice to see others as less than human, it was making them smaller, meaner, emptier. They were destroying their own souls for the sake of viral videos and momentary power." Maria absorbs this wisdom with the seriousness of someone who recognizes profound truth. "So your revenge was showing them who they could become instead?" "Revenge," Michael smiles, the expression warm and genuine. No, Maria. Revenge would have been easy. I could have destroyed them financially, exposed their secrets, ruined their reputations. But that would have made me the same as them, someone who takes pleasure in others' suffering. He stands, moving to the windows that offer a view of the city he's helping to rebuild. In the distance, construction cranes mark the sites of new projects. Affordable housing developments, community health centers, educational facilities designed to serve rather than extract profit. What I gave them was something much more powerful than revenge, Michael says. I gave them the opportunity to discover who they could be if they chose to be better. Derek is learning that honest work has its own dignity. Sarah is discovering that telling meaningful stories feeds the soul in ways that viral content never could. James is finding purpose in service to others. And Richard, Michael's voice softens with something that might be forgiveness. Richard is spending his final years building homes for people who've never had homes. He's learned that redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing a different future. The lobby door opens, and Sarah enters carrying a camera and interviewing equipment. But this isn't the same woman who filmed Cruelty for entertainment. Her equipment is professional but modest, her clothing practical rather than fashionable. She's here to document the stories of the building's new tenants, a non-profit organization that provides job training for formerly homeless individuals. She spots Michael and approaches with hesitation, her former arrogance replaced by genuine humility. Mr. Hartwell, I wanted to show you something. Sarah's tablet displays her latest project, a documentary series about people rebuilding their lives after trauma. The production values are lower than her former viral content. The view count's modest, but the comments section tells a different story. People thanking her for showing them they're not alone. Veterans writing about finding hope, families sharing their own stories of resilience. I'll never have millions of followers again, Sarah says, her voice carrying a peace that all her former influence never provided. But for the first time in my life, I'm creating something that matters. Michael nods approvingly. Influence without purpose is just noise, Sarah. You've learned to use your voice to amplify others, rather than drowning them out. As Sarah returns to her work, Michael reflects on the journey that brought him to this moment. The betrayal that nearly destroyed him, the years of invisibility that taught him patience, the humiliation that revealed the true character of those who thought they held power over him. Mr. Hartwell? Maria's voice interrupts his reverie. There's something I don't understand. You could have had your revenge immediately. You had the power, the resources, the legal right to destroy them. Why wait? Why show mercy? Michael returns to his chair, settling in with the comfort of someone who has finally found his way home. Because mercy isn't weakness, Maria. It's the strongest force in the universe. It has the power to transform enemies into allies, to turn cynics into believers, to prove that humans are capable of being better than their worst moments. He takes a sip of his coffee, the liquid warm and comforting, carrying the taste of morning and possibility. Those executives spent their lives measuring worth by external markers, bank accounts, social media followers, designer clothing, corporate titles. They never learned that true power comes from within, that real strength comes from lifting others up rather than pushing them down. The morning sun climbs higher, casting golden light across the lobby that has become so much more than a corporate space. It's become a symbol of transformation, proof that even the most damaged places can be healed with vision, patience, and the radical decision to see potential rather than just problems. I want you to remember something, Maria, Michael says, his voice carrying the weight of a final lesson. In your career, you'll meet people who measure your worth by your position, your paycheck, your perceived importance. They'll try to make you feel small, invisible, insignificant. He gestures to the chair where his humiliation began, where his resurrection was born. Never let them convince you that your value depends on their recognition. Never let them reduce you to their limited vision of who you should be. And most importantly, never let their cruelty turn you cruel in return. Maria nods solemnly, understanding that she's receiving more than career advice. She's being entrusted with a philosophy that has the power to change the world, one person at a time. But what if they do try to humiliate you? She asks. What if they film you, mock you, try to make you into their entertainment? Michael's smile holds 23 years of pain, transformed into wisdom, defeat alchemized into strength. Then you remember that their cruelty reveals their character, not yours. You stand tall in your dignity, knowing that true power isn't about where you sit, but how you choose to rise. He finishes his coffee and stands, ready to begin another day of building something better than what came before. As he moves toward the elevators, his reflection catches in the polished marble floor, not the broken man who once lost everything, not the invisible janitor who cleaned these halls, but someone entirely new, a leader who learned that the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies, but showing them how to defeat the worst parts of themselves. The elevator doors close, carrying him toward a day filled with blueprints and budgets and the sacred work of creating spaces where human dignity can flourish. But his message remains, echoing through the lobby like a promise. Never judge a man by where he sits, but by how he stands. And sometimes the greatest stand you can take is showing others how to stand tall themselves. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If this story reminds you of a time when you were judged unfairly, or when you had to choose between revenge and mercy, share your experience in the comments. It might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched you, share in the comments what resonated most deeply. And send this video to someone who needs to be reminded that their worth isn't determined by others' recognition, but by the dignity they carry within themselves.